Hello, this is Jim Michaels with the Hickory Heights Church of Christ in Lewisburg, Tennessee. I'd like to share with you just a brief message from the Bible. Do you realize that just because the majority of the people in the world are doing something, that doesn't mean that it's acceptable in the eyes of God? The majority of the people do a number of things that are wrong in light of what the Bible teaches. We have to make sure that what we do is what the Lord tells us to do. Back in the book of Exodus, in Exodus 23, he said, you shall not follow a crowd to do evil. And certainly there's a lot of people that are doing things that are evil and wicked. You know, the majority of the people are doing those kinds of things, but just because they're doing those things, that doesn't give us the right to do them as well. In Matthew, the 7th chapter, you remember in verses 13, and what Jesus says concerning the broad way there. Look with me at that particular verse. He said, enter by the narrow gate. He says, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who go in by it. And so the majority of the people are going to be lost. But just because other people are doing it doesn't give us the right to do those things. You know, even because the laws of the land may permit something, that doesn't mean that God gives us permission to do those things. Does the laws of the land, does it permit us to live in adultery? Well, yeah, we could live in adultery. Commit fornication? Yeah. Can we lie? Yeah, we could lie. You know, as long as we're not lying to an official, then certainly we can lie. We can lie to our neighbors. We can lie to our friends, and we don't have anything to worry about. You know, the law officer coming and knocking on our door and arresting us because we're lying. But just because the laws of the land permit something, that doesn't mean that God's laws permit it. You know, certainly we have to make sure that we obey the laws of the land. We have to do what the law tells us, as long as they don't violate the scriptures themselves. He said, let every soul be subject to the governing authorities. That's in Romans 13 in verses 1. But you know, a little later in that same chapter, he tells us to love our neighbors. You know, the laws of the land may give me permission to despise my neighbor and really hate my neighbor, but God doesn't give me that right. You know, there are a lot of things that are accepted in society today. Homosexuality is accepted. Fornication, adultery is accepted. Lying is accepted, by just a number of people. But that doesn't mean that God accepts those things. What you and I have to make sure that we do is that we listen to God. We do what God tells us to do. And God tells us not to follow the crowd to do evil, and he tells us to submit to the laws of the land, but he wants us to be obedient to his law. He's the author of eternal salvation unto all those that obey him. Do his will. Thank you for listening.